All right, beautiful people. Here's what we're doing in today's video. We have done a draft on Underdog Fantasy, and all these drafts are like a $3 buy-in minimum, so everyone takes them seriously. And I did this draft last week, so the only thing you'll notice that probably changed was Stephon Diggs is in the second round. He got drafted by Buffalo, so this was pre-Diggs trade. But I made the board and made it beautiful, and it doesn't actually impact what we're talking about today. We're looking at specifically rookies and where they went. And again, everyone buys into these drafts, so everyone takes them seriously, and these are realistic landing spots because you win money at the end of the year. I wanted to look at it from a little bit of a different angle, these rookies and this class in general, from a redraft standpoint, because I think that helps give you an inkling of where the market really is on players right now. Because in Dynasty, it's really easy to be like, I like this guy because he's going to be good in like 3 to 5 years. How do you really feel about a player right now? And I think a player's value goes up and down the most in their first year. Obviously, right? We have the biggest glimpse into what that player is going to be at the NFL level, right? Like we hear everybody talking about like yards per route run is so predictive, this and that and the other fucking thing. Yards per route run from college to the NFL is almost pointless because there's no context behind it. If you have a high yards per route run in year one of the NFL, that is probably 1,000 times more predictive for year two because you have shown that you are a good, efficient player at the NFL level. And you will be playing within 95% of the context that you just did that in the following year. So with redraft stuff, that's what this is. This is a one-year league. I don't know why I'm mansplaining what redraft is to you guys. There's no way that you just got straight into Dynasty Fantasy Football without ever playing redraft. Point is, we want to get into some of the rookies. We want to talk about some of the trends we're seeing. We want to talk about some interesting notes for the most part. The first thing you will see on the board, we blacked out every one of the veterans. So everyone that's in year 2 through year fucking 17 is blacked out here. All the ones with colors left in them are the rookies. The oranges are the receivers, the blues are the tight ends, the purples are the quarterbacks, and the greens are thy running backs, okay? So the first thing you'll notice is we have a hefty dosage of orange players at the top of the draft, okay? We have Marvin Harrison as the first player going in redraft all the way up at the 207. And why that's interesting, because I've been playing best ball on Underdog in particular for as long as they have had drafts going, right? I'm talking about back when they were the draft app, not even Underdog, all right? This is by far and away the highest that a rookie wide receiver has ever gone in an Underdog draft at the 207. Malik Neighbors at the 3-2 would also qualify as the highest rookie receiver ever drafted in a best ball draft had Marvin Harrison not been there. Rome Odunze down at the 5-4. He wouldn't have qualified, but he'd be damn close. The highest I can remember a rookie wide receiver ever going in Underdog drafts was Jamar Chase, who going around the 4-5 turn, where you see Trey McBride, Cooper Kupp, Isaiah Pacheco, Rashad White. That is where Jamar Chase was going during his rookie season. So Rome is right there, and that was towards the end of the summer when Jamar was already like hyped up and ready to go, and things were fluid, right? Rome is here at the start. So we have not had the NFL draft yet. We have not had landing spots. We have not had all that preseason training camp, rookie hype throughout the summer to push these ADPs up. So I think they're going to continue to skyrocket further and further and further up. Obviously, we've had other rookies go higher, right? Like when a rookie running back comes in, like Bijan Robinson, he was a first-round pick last year. So I'm not referring to that, but I'm talking about the wide receivers. So you're talking about a class that people expect to produce immediately in the NFL, and I don't think it's crazy, in particular, Marv and Malik Neighbors, because I would put it at a pretty good chance that we are seeing a draft that plays out that is 3 quarterbacks off the rip, and then Marvin Harrison to Arizona and Malik Neighbors to the Chargers. Now, those landing spots are fucking incredible because you have Marv going straight to Kyler and straight slotting in as his number 1 wide receiver because Marquise Hollywood Brown, he out of there. Marv is now in, and I think you can project a solid 130, 140, upwards of 150 targets right away. And if you give a player of Marvin Harrison's talent 150 targets right away, he's going to do some damage for you. Same thing works with Malik Neighbors. The Chargers have the 5th pick. They've obviously gotten rid of Keenan Allen. They've gotten rid of Mike Williams. You put Malik into that situation, he is getting 130, 140, 150 targets off the rip, and he is so good with the ball in his hands that he might even have more yardage than Marvin Harrison in year 1. So I got, to be honest with you, I have absolutely no problem with Marvin Harrison going where he's going, with Malik Neighbors going where he's going. Rome is a little bit more up in the air because I think most people have an idea that he's going to go top 10, but we're not really sure of the teams. Like, does he go to New York, where we're really iffy about the QB situation? Does he go to Chicago, where he would probably slot in as the third wide receiver behind DJ Moore and Keenan Allen? So I think there's a little bit more uncertainty around him, but if he ends up going to like the Chargers and Malik goes to the Giants, then their ADPs would probably flip and Rome would go really high up there. Oh man, the C4 is hitting me right now. I'm getting the fucking scratches. So the next interesting thing I do want to speak on here is Brian Thomas and Adonai Mitchell. Brian Thomas is going at the 6-2. So not that far behind Rome Odunze. You're talking about like 10 picks apart. Adonai Mitchell is going at the 8-7. That is 2.5 rounds after Brian Thomas. I expect both of them to be first-round draft picks this year. And speaking of, we will be live streaming for the entire first round of the NFL draft. We're going to try to make this the single best Dynasty NFL draft stream that you guys have ever seen on YouTube, okay? So make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure you got notifications turned on. We will be going live probably an hour before the NFL draft kicks off, all the way through midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. We're going to do whatever we got to do, all right? Brian Thomas seems like he's doing whatever he's got to do to get all the way up to the 6-2. Now, I find this interesting so early in the offseason. Everyone does these projections about where guys are going to go, what their talent level is going to be. When I've seen a lot of mock drafts. I've seen a lot of NFL mock drafts from ESPN, from The Athletic, from random bloggers and individual contributor creators, whatever the case may fucking be. And Brian Thomas and Adonai Mitchell, there is not a general consensus between where these guys are going to land or if one is going to go really far ahead of the other. Like, I've seen half the mocks take Brian Thomas Jr. going to Jacksonville. They signed Gabe Davis. I don't know how realistic that is. The other half of the mocks, you have Adonai Mitchell going to Kansas City later in the first round. Then you have Adonai Mitchell going to Jacksonville in some of them. Brian Thomas going to Baltimore in some of them. Some going to Buffalo. Some going to Tampa Bay. I just think the stance here, this is the market telling you that they think Brian Thomas Jr. is way more talented than Adonai Mitchell is, okay? 2.5 rounds in redraft more talented than Adonai Mitchell is, whereas I feel a lot of uncertainty around feeling like Brian Thomas Jr. is for sure going above Adonai Mitchell and for sure getting drafted into a landing spot that's better than Adonai Mitchell. If we're projecting them to be 5-10 picks apart, the only thing separating them, in my eyes, for the rookie year would be situation. Who's the one that ends up in Buffalo? Who's the one that ends up in Kansas City? Who is the one that, I don't know, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, whatever the case may be? So for them to be 2.5 rounds apart feels a little bit out of control here. I would skip Brian Thomas at the 6-2, rather take Adonai Mitchell at the 8-7 and kind of let the draft play out. It's like when you look at what I was talking about with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, I am extremely confident that both of those guys go top 10 and they go to one of like 3 or 4 landing spots. Arizona, the Chargers, Chicago, the Giants, you know what I mean? Like, so we have a really, really, really good feel for when guys are going to go and where they're going to go, at least a section of them. But once you get to like pick 15 to pick 20 to pick 30, it's really hard to actually like accurately predict where those guys start to drop in the NFL draft. Do people like it's really hard to trade up into the top 5 to the top 4, whatever it may be. So you see it less frequently and almost always for a quarterback. Once you get into the middle of the rounds, once you get to 20 or whatever, we see it a little bit more frequently and we see positions getting picked all over the place to go get your guys. So again, just there's a lot of confidence from the market about Brian Thomas as compared to Adonai Mitchell, where everything I've seen is that these guys will get extremely similar draft capital. And I would almost say if we're projecting, which most of the mock drafts, they're close in draft capital, but Brian Thomas is definitely usually like 5 to 10 picks ahead. I almost feel like that might play into Adonai Mitchell's hand because the teams that are picking from 26 to 32 are usually a lot better. And in particular, a lot of them have openings in the receiver core, whether it's Kansas City or Buffalo or those types of teams. On that same-ish kind of note, it is interesting to see that Jayden Daniels is going all the way up at the 11-7 with Drake Maye going 3 rounds later. The way I'm thinking about this, I'm actually more, I know why, like it makes sense, right? In redraft, especially rookies, like the throwing prowess, the throwing stats, which Drake Maye brings to the board, where Jayden Daniels brings a lot more of that rushing ability and rushing upside. He could rush for 5, 6, 7, 800 yards as a rookie. We're not as confident in getting strong fantasy stats out of a rookie quarterback just from throwing. Like obviously we had CJ Stroud last year, but that's not the norm. I think a lot of the time we're looking at someone who throws for like 3,200 yards, maybe 20 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions. Like in that range, I think is like a normal QB, okay, he's our future type of range. We don't always see them just like go crazy their rookie year. So I think that's what people are expecting from Drake. But if you add in 500, 600, 700 rushing yards to Jayden Daniels, those numbers look a lot better. So I'm surprised that everyone in redraft is looking at Jayden Daniels as the clear number 2, but in Dynasty, it doesn't feel that. Drake Maye's definitely cooled a little bit. If I'm looking at the draft right now and I had to do my own mock draft, it would obviously go Caleb 1. I would say Drake Maye's the clear 2. I think Drake Maye is going to go number 2 to Washington, and I think Jayden Daniels might go number 3. I don't know if Jayden Daniels is the type of guy that the Patriots really want to build their franchise around, to be honest with you. They've felt like someone that wants a pocket passer, a stable quarterback, but obviously different head coach, different scheme, different all this kind of shit going on. So I don't know. The confidence in Jayden Daniels so far ahead of Drake Maye, a little bit weird. I get it. I think we've also seen a trend. We were talking about this on either yesterday's video or one of the group podcasts that we're going to be doing in the coming weeks. But we've seen a lot of you hear the talk about like, oh, we want these rushing quarterbacks because their floor is so high. You don't get to show that floor for fantasy unless you're a good thrower of the football. Like a lot of teams now are like, cool, you could run the ball, but if you can't actually lead our team, if you can't throw the ball accurately, you're not going to stay on the field. Justin Fields, great example of that. We've seen a lot of Trey Lance, another example of that. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks who would be good at running the ball and would give you a safe fantasy floor, but teams are getting less and less receptive to giving these players more time to develop as passers. And not saying that's going to be Jayden Daniels, but I also think that's something just to be aware of. So when we're looking at the draft overall, this is a 20-round draft. I only have 18 on the board just so you guys could see it a little bit more clearly. I wanted to expand it a bit. The only 2 that you're missing out in rounds 19 and 20 are Will Shipley, the Clemson running back, and Luke McCaffrey. But besides that, overall, we have 36 rookies drafted, which is a really fucking high number in these best ball drafts. We have 5 quarterbacks. We've got 20 wide receivers, 9 running backs, and 2 tight ends. Like, it's a huge number for wide receivers. I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's a lot of hysteria, to be honest with you. This is actually an incredible rookie class with a ton of players projected to go in the top 50 inside the first 2 rounds. And a lot of times those roles lead to immediate roles on the NFL field. We see it with dudes like Jayden Reed, who probably would have been like a 13th, 14th, 15th round best ball pick last year, if that, and then immediately starts getting targets in the Green Bay offense and becomes like a staple of that offense, if not the wide receiver 1 by the end of the year in that offense. And that's what a lot of these guys are, like Jayden Reed level or better as prospects. The first running back off the board is Blake Corum. He goes at the 10-2. Trey Benson goes to the 10-9. I think this is fine. I don't have a great read on which running back will come off the board first. If I had to guess, it would be Jonathan Brooks, but he's not going to be a great redraft pick because he's recovering from the ACL. So it's like, this is one where I think there's obviously going to be a drastic difference in draft capital projection, like best ball redraft type leagues, because Jonathan Brooks probably will see a 40% snap share over the first 8-10 weeks of the season. Might not be that useful for fantasy. So you have guys like Trey Benson and Jalen Wright and Blake Corum, and Braylon Allen goes all the way down to 14-7, literally just because we did not see him compete at the Combine. So this is a lot of recency bias based on what we just saw at the Combine. In my opinion, if you saw, like, Blake Corum's the first one off the board at the 10-2. Braylon Allen is 4.5 rounds later. Marshawn Lloyd is 6.5 rounds later. If you told me that Braylon Allen or Marshawn Lloyd went above Blake Corum in the NFL draft, would not surprise me in the least. If you told me Blake Corum was a day 3 pick, like early 4th round, talking about like that Dameon Pierce type draft capital, wouldn't surprise me in the least. Okay, so I think we should be probably a little bit more open to drafting some of these later running backs, in particular, like the Braylon Allens, in particular the Marshawn Lloyds, the ones that are going in the 14th, 15th, 16th round, for sure higher. Because if they're one of the guys that goes on day 2, their draft cap's going to shoot fucking straight up. We got Michael Penix down at 17-11, J.J. McCarthy down at 18-9. I'm a little bit surprised that Bo Nix was completely undrafted, only because I think there's definitely a non-zero chance that he ends up being a first-round pick, if not a top 15 pick. There's a lot of chatter about him going to Denver right now, and if that's the case, he'll probably be starting off the rip. And I feel like he could probably do worse in best ball than just having a straight starting quarterback down here in the last round, where you're drafting dudes like fucking Gerald Everett and Izzy Abanikanda and Tank Bigsby. Oh, I was really nervous that was my fucking team. I scrolled up. I knew I was at the back half of the draft. Wasn't me. But yeah, I think we could probably do a little bit better than that. And if you're interested in doing these drafts, we throw links to these drafts like throughout the week, probably 3, 4, 5 times a week in the Discord. So go join the Discord. Free to join, obviously. Link is down below. And sign up on Underdog. If you're new to Underdog, again, these drafts, minimum $3 to join. You could pay up to, I think, $100,000 buying one. We do a lot of the $3 drafts just to kind of get our nut off, just to get a little bit of practice going in these drafts. So by the time your rookie drafts come around, by the time your actual fantasy drafts come around in, September, August, whatever, we're extremely prepared and we understand the market to like a really, really defined degree over here. So if you go on to Underdog, download it, and you deposit $10, you can use our code BDGE, which will double whatever you put down. So your 10 will turn into 20. If you want to put down 50, it'll turn into 100. And guess what? You can do 30 of these drafts throughout the summer. You can do them fast, where it's 30 seconds per pick, or you could do them slow, where it's 8 hours per pick, and you just get a notification or an email when you're on the clock. My favorite thing to do is rip off like 10 slow drafts, so that you're pretty much picking like every half hour or so, and you're not like rushed. If you're in the middle of doing some shit, you can kind of just sit there on the clock, sit back, make yourself a nice little margarita, and make a couple picks and see how the board plays out. So it's a really, really, really fun, smooth app to draft on right now. Go get a feel for what the rookies are doing. There are also rookie sophomore drafts where you're doing drafts like this, but it's only rookies and sophomores, which is fun too, to see how they compare to last year's class in redraft. So we'll end it there. You guys can obviously pause at any time to kind of look at the board and see where guys are going. Let me know what your hot takes are, where these guys are going to move post NFL draft. Because obviously landing spots, draft capital, the biggest shakeups are going to happen post NFL draft. I think in my eyes, the biggest things will be the landing spots for those top 3 wide receivers and the draft capital for the running backs for the most part. I think it's great value that you can get all of these Troy Franklins and Lab McConkeys and Keon Coleman's, Ricky Pearsall and Xavier Leggett and those types of guys all the way down here in the 14th, 15th round, because for the most part, those dudes are going to end up getting top 50 second round draft capital at worst. So they're going to shoot up as well and probably start to dominate this like 9th, 10th, 11th round of drafts. Like you're going to start, listen, if Keon Coleman goes in the second round, if Xavier Leggett goes in the second round, you're going to want to start drafting him over, Quentin Johnston. You're going to want to start drafting him over Rashid Shaheed and those types of players. So, drop down below in the comments what you think. Give me some hot takes. Give me some hot takes on the biggest movement on the board going forward post-draft. We will wrap it up there. I hope you liked a little bit of a change of pace here, looking at it from a redraft perspective. I don't think you can ever get enough opinions from enough angles, from enough people yapping at you. All right, I'm out of here. NFL Draft live stream day 1. Put it on your calendars. Get a Sharpie, write it on your baby's forehead so you don't forget.